This is public posturing, in my opinion, at its finest. But Elliot Friedman from 32 Thoughts, the podcast on Sunday, late Sunday, early Monday, saying one of the things a few people have told me is not to be surprised if this plays out over next season with Marner in Toronto. Then Pierre LeBrun adds from The Athletic, and TSN, of course, added that the Marner camp currently has no plans to discuss an extension on our trade list. Their preference is to honor the last year of his contract and see where things go. What are your thoughts on that, Rosie? You ready to run it back with the core four, bud?
Interesting. Well, I think I said this after the playoffs. I said, emotions are high and tempers are a little hot, and people want to point fingers, and we did as well. And I think in my mind, the finger was pointed at the right spot with, again, with the contract situation, the salary cap situation, and the way this roster is built. You funnel it down and it comes down to Mitch Marner. And what do you do? And I think, again, it's not like seething, you're awful. It's strategically from a roster standpoint. If you extend this player, you are basically signing up willingly for more of the same that you've had in the last 8 years. You cannot say that they haven't given it a good run. You cannot say that they haven't tried many different ways of running a roster constructed this way. They have. And they've beefed it up, and they've gone through changes, and they've done coaching changes, and they've done it all, and it's been more of the same in the playoffs. So we talk about running it back. People were like, it was pretty split last year. Are you going to run this back? You're crazy to run this back. You're crazy to run this back. They did. First round exit after a sterling regular season. So to do it again, I'm sorry. Like, he's a valuable piece. If Mitch Marner was a bum and not good at hockey and useless to the team, we wouldn't really even be talking about him. We're talking about him because he's a valuable asset that you can move in order to make your team good. You can't just get rid of bums and get gold in return. It has to have a high value. And Mitch Marner is an all-star. He's a high-value guy. He gets tons of points in the regular season. And he could be an essential piece to someone in the offseason with a different construction. But the way this team is built, it's just the overwhelming consensus, I'm sorry, always was to see if we can move Marner and open some things up and change the identity of this team that's more suited for the playoffs. And now that, the tempers have gone down, people have kind of forgot. It's all like, it's starting to change. And whether that's his camp trying to posture and trying to get leverage and be in the driver's seat, there's lots of that going on, believe me, behind the scenes. But I mean, people do kind of forget. And now, the sentiment is softening a little bit on Mitch Marner, you could say, for some people.
Oh,
But in my opinion, it's like, okay, if you want to not do this with Mitch Marner, then you, by definition, are signing up to run it back. And I don't know if I'm prepared for that.
I'm not. I tell you, I had self-imposed diarrhea last night, and it wasn't from the Blue Jays' loss. This is sickening. If you're taking this at face value, this information, you're an idiot, okay? There's a method to this madness. There's no surprise that somebody was in the chat yesterday just speaking glowingly about Mitch Marner, okay? That's all I'm putting out there. I'm choosing not to read too much into this, Rosie. It is June 4th. If anything, I think this is like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to step the fuck up if you want to trade for Mitch Marner. Now is the time. And I think the best way to handle this for both parties is behind the scenes. If we're hearing information on it, it's probably not going to go well. You're probably not going to get the best value. But to sit here on June 4th, and I'm not discounting the insiders. They're the best at what they do for a reason. But I think this information was leaked for a reason too.
Yeah, agents are, they're lawyers. They understand, how to work a public opinion and the way the light that someone's looked at, and it's part of their job. And at the end of the day, the only thing they care about is getting the best and the most for their client, and they're going to do it by any means necessary. And especially here with a Mitch Marner in the market of Toronto, there is public posturing and there is leaked information and there is swaying public opinion and trying to get the leverage and trying to paint someone into a corner and just trying to put yourself in the best position for negotiations. And at the end of the day, this does come down to Mitch Marner has to sign something to allow any movement to happen, bottom line. So I haven't talked to Mitch Marner. I don't know where his head's at. I don't know if he's thinking, yeah, let's get the hell out of Toronto, but let's get it in the best position we possibly can. Like, would he want to be traded for a lot and then have that, that trade go well for Toronto, or would he want it to be less so that if he leaves Toronto and has success, what they got in return would be, he could say, how did that work out for you? Like, there's all kinds of things. And depending on who he is and what he wants, and you got to think that if he is going to make a change and he's open to it, why not get it going in before the season? But if we start creeping into August and nothing's happened, then I could see it being a little bit of a stalemate. But to say that right now, I think is silly. We still have the draft. We still have free agency. Lots of things move and shake during those periods of time.
Moral of the story, man, they have to have a backbone. What I've seen negotiation-wise in the last decade, most recently with the previous administration, is just not going to fly. If you're just going to lay down and die and you're going to let the Marner camp dictate this whole process, the wrong people are running this organization. There's ways to put your foot down. You know what it is? Call the Marner camp. We don't want you on this team. Okay? There are different strategies you can employ to make this move here. That's all I'm saying, right? Like, I think the fact that this story comes out and it's like, oh, well, Marner dictates the process. I'm not completely sold on that either.
Well, but you got to be careful, because when you're dealing with that situation with a player, there's a chance that it doesn't get done, or a deal, maybe he wants out and you want him out, and a deal doesn't come by that makes sense. No one's biting, and then all of a sudden the guy's on your roster still. So it's tough. It kind of reminds me of arbitration, where, you have to go in and your team that you're going to sign with eventually most likely is going to rip you in every way, shape, and form. And then you got to go work together after. It's difficult. So you want to avoid that situation if possible and try to be a little bit delicate about it. And I'm sure they are, but at the end of the day, there is a pulse on the situation after you talk to Marner and his camp. And we don't know exactly where they're sitting, but I think that, Tree Living, for example, would have a better understanding of that than us.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.